So maybe we've been live this whole 5 minutes?
No, I just clicked on it. It's still not showing it though.
Yeah, and it doesn't say recording either.
Well, recording is a separate event.
Here.
Oh no, here we are.
Recording is a separate event.
Okay, we are streaming live.
Recording is a separate event. Okay, we are streaming live.
Okay, let me click this off. And then we're going to click on record. So we are streaming right now.
All
So
right.
I'm going to still click the record here. And yeah, it's recording now. So awesome. We are live and we're recording. So we are the Love and Freedom Patriots, Gavin and Dagmar. And we're here today to talk about a very interesting topic, fear-mongering or real threat. You know, which is it?
Right.
And so both Gavin and I are healers or spiritual healers and also clairvoyants. And so we have interesting backgrounds, and some of the other videos go into further introductions for us, but we got to make a video one time to just introduce ourselves so we don't have to keep repeating ourselves in every video.
Yeah.
So we won't go
there.
into too much introduction today, unless you want to, Gavin. But
We'll get there.
yeah, I think we should just go into our awesome topic here.
Sounds great.
So yeah, so we apologize for being a little bit late on the video here because we are actually for the first time doing it through the YouTube, Zoom via YouTube stream, which takes some technical magic.
Wizardry. Wizardry, and you said magic, so we're in the same place. It's like we're psychic or something. Weird, right?
Yeah, you know, some wizardy in the technical department. Took me a while to figure out what it wants, you know. So okay, so real threat versus fear mongering. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because there's several times I actually ran into some of this, okay? And I'm going to give you one example of what I've run into, and then we'll talk about it. And so, you know, I posted on Facebook this post that said simply, just occurred to me, the purpose of Biden's opening of borders is to supply the deep state child abusers with children. And it was just a matter of fact thought that just popped in my head. And I posted it on Facebook,
Right.
you know, and so this gal comes along and says, and I'm going to read some of it and I'm not going to read all of it. So, you know, something about all these are lowering our vibration. Can we focus on high vibration and spread that to the world? Even mentioning the dark side serves them because our energy flows where our focus goes. So there's some concepts out there especially among the light workers, I guess, community or the metaphysical community, is that when we talk about darkness or fear or any of the low vibration stuff, that somehow we are lowering our vibration.
Right. And
Okay.
of course that has to do with what you just read, the law of attraction. Where we put our attention is where our energy follows and flows.
So you believe in what she's saying. You think that that's how it is?
Not necessarily. I mean, just to a point, yes. I believe there's some fact in it to a point. But the opposite, the counter view is that we need to talk about it. It needs to be discussed. It needs to be revealed. It can't be hidden forever. So there is this like window where these dark things need to be exposed and talked about. And, you know, I do not believe that we're contributing to, you know, lowering our vibration in that sense. Am I being clear?
Yeah. I mean, so let me just say this, okay?
Oh, wait, one thing, wait, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Because it has to do with intention. Our intention is not to fearmonger. Our intention is not to keep people in anxiety. So intention plays a huge role in this. So
I agree.
yes. Yeah. And so your intention, our intention, not to fearmonger, but to awaken and to make people aware, takes precedent, has more power and influence than the actual fearmongering or lowering our vibration. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of different
Theories.
avenues here. One of them is the fear-mongering aspect. The other one is lowering the vibration. You know, so I'm going to give you my 2 cents worth about this whole lowering of vibration. Yes, our thoughts are in our vibration. However, okay, we don't just lower our vibration by talking about, you know, different subjects. Okay.
Right.
What actually lowers our vibration that plays a significant role in our vibration is pain.
Right.
Okay? Pain is a lot more powerful than thoughts. Okay, because there is a charge behind pain like no other. All right. And that's what actually lowers our vibration. That's why you can have, for example, say a woman who has had abuse in her past, okay, which is pain. And she is sitting there thinking to herself, this time I'm going to meet a good guy, right? And now who she attracts is actually just the perfect right abuser for her that will match her vibration of abuse. And it absolutely does not matter the fact that she was thinking, hey, I'm going to meet a nice guy now.
Right.
Okay. This is very, very important for the metaphysical community to understand. You don't just alter your vibration by thinking a thought,
Right.
okay? Not on a permanent level anyway, okay?
Right.
Much the same way when you are talking about a threat as a warning or a darkness, okay? You don't have to be in the vibration of fear to do so.
Right.
You can talk about it from the standpoint of power.
Yes, like we
which
are.
is high in vibration. And it doesn't mean you're lowering anybody's vibration by talking about it. However, okay, when you do talk about it and those people who have fear or pain that's similar to whatever you're talking about, it can key them into it.
Yes, we're immediately triggering them.
Right. So while you may be in your high vibration of power,
yes,
and you can talk about dark stuff,
yes,
it may bother other people extensively because it's actually pulling them into their low vibration.
correct. That's exactly what happens to a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the metaphysical community is misunderstanding how this whole vibrational thing works by being afraid to talk about it. You know, like, oh, you're talking too much fear, so now it's dropping all of our. No, it's not.
Right.
Not necessarily. It depends on where you are at personally.
Yeah, and again, like we said, your intention.
And you, well, yes, that's a little bit different subject in terms of the fear mongering. I'm going to go into the actual definition of it, and that has actually everything to do with the intention part. But I'm strictly talking about the vibrational aspect right now because of the misconception by the metaphysical community as to what actually lowers and raises vibration. Right. You know, just because I talk about an issue that's negative or that's dark does not mean I'm lowering, the planet's vibration. Okay, it does not mean that at all.
Right.
Okay. But on the other side of things, like what the mainstream media is doing, where they purposefully, and this is where the intention comes into play, constantly are bombarding you things to be afraid of.
That's right.
Because they know that you're going to key into that. Because let's face it, I mean, it's so weird about the whole fear. Everybody wants to be high vibration. So everybody's like, I'm not afraid of anything. Well, that's bullshit. Okay. Because if you've lived life, you experience pain. And so therefore you have fear in your vibration.
Yeah.
All right. And so, was I saying? I forgot my train.
You were just swearing. That's all. No big deal.
Oh, was I swearing? I'm sorry. I don't mean to swear.
You know I'm teasing you. You were just saying how there's a misconception that just simply talking about fear automatically lowers our vibration. And you're saying that's
right.
Bullshit. And I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, I forget what I was going with the whole thing. So, just because you talk about it does not mean that you're necessarily intending to key somebody into fear. But the mainstream media is what I was talking about. They intentionally do that, okay,
Yes.
because they know that everybody has some kind of pain in their past, and people are gonna key into their fear stuff and into the pain stuff, and so they're constantly bombarding you with things to be afraid of purposefully.
Yes.
And that is fear mongering, okay?
Yes.
Because then ultimately what they want to do is sell you on the solution of vaccines, right?
Right. Or
whatever, right? Or
exactly.
masks or whatever their agenda is. And it's a false agenda, okay? But on the same token, like, for example, I posted again another post on Facebook where I was marketing my ebook, which is about accelerating your spiritual awakening and transformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was marketing and it's saying, something about that you need to heal your fear in order to rise into your power, right? So I was actually trying to empower the person that they can actually do something about it. So this gentleman puts a comment on there about how I'm fear mongering and trying to sell him on something.
Yeah.
So what's that?
Yeah, I think I read that comment.
Yeah, so I'm like, seriously? But very clearly, was he coming from a place of fear? And probably, most likely, has experienced somebody selling him something, or actually, it's about taking advantage, okay, is what it's all about. Taking advantage of a person, causing them to cause them fear, to sell them something, right? It's about taking advantage, which is not my intention at all, okay? And this is where the intention comes in, right? Yep. But because when we experience pain, it's lodged in our subconscious mind. The subconscious mind doesn't differentiate.
That's right.
Right? So all it does is, this looks similar to what happened here. So therefore, you're doing exactly the same thing as what this person did to me over here, which couldn't be further from the truth because the intention is completely different, okay?
Yes, I just want to mention that you're right, because from a physiological and a neurological perspective, our body and brain has no idea the difference between a real threat or fear mongering. And so it naturally puts us into fight or flight mode because it cannot determine the difference. And that's where our intuition and our mind comes into play to tell us if it's real threat or fear mongering.
Well, you're absolutely right on that, Gavin. But here's the issue about it, okay, is when you have fear or the unresolved pain, which causes fear, right? That's where fear comes from. It's from our unresolved pain. When you have that in your vibration, it's going to be very hard for you to tell whether it's a real threat or not, because you have that ego part of yourself impeding upon you, telling you, hey, this is very similar to what you've experienced before. And so you have a hard time telling the difference. See, what you need to do to put yourself in a position of power and discernment is to heal your unresolved stuff. Mm-hmm. That's what's so critical about healing today.
Yes.
Because when you take away that ego impediment on you, that's when you can be in a point of neutrality and actually be able to discern whether this person is really trying to take advantage of you or not. because you don't have that ego going in there and taking over, and you seeing everything in the color red all of a sudden, right? And because you have those glasses on, there's no way you can tell the difference. Okay.
That's right.
And so this is how critical it is, especially in today's day and age, to heal the unresolved past pain, including your past lives, because you carry all that with you in present time.
That's right.
And that is what is going to prevent you from being able to look at a lampshade and know whether that lampshade is a lampshade or not when it comes to the inner essence of it.
Right. So you'll be able to tell.
Yes. And when you do enough healing on yourself, when you're able to stand in neutrality, you can look at a lampshade and know whether the essence of the lampshade is actually a lampshade.
Yeah.
So this is, I don't know if you understand how critical this is in being able to tell the difference between the evil shit that's going on in our world and the good stuff. Because quite often the evil disguises itself as the good stuff.
That's what we're experiencing in our political scene.
That's exactly right. And that's why there's so many people who are taken and manipulated with it, because they can't tell the difference.
That's right, because they cannot tell the difference.
Yeah.
They have not developed their intuition to a point where they can trust it and they value it. And so they're easily swayed. It reminds me of, some meme or an adage that says, if you don't stand up for anything, you're going to fall for everything.
Yeah. But this is even if you were to stand up for something, right? It's that confusion between, because you have your intuition, which is your communication to yourself, but you also have your ego communicating with you all the time. And if your ego is filled with unresolved past pain stuff that's not fully resolved, you know what? It's going to overpower your communication with your intuition. And a lot of people confuse their messaging that's coming from their ego with the intuitive self.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's what the problem is. Okay.
Yeah, for sure it is.
Yeah. So anyway, just wanted to mention all of those because that is where the crux of the problem is when it comes to all this mainstream media manipulation, the politics, people, being so adamant about, seeing things in this way, versus other people adamant about seeing it this way, because it really depends on, how much of that ego pain you got overpowering everything and, screwing your glasses, the color to a different color. So if you're looking through your pain and you're seeing the color green, nobody's going to convince you that the color is blue, even if it is blue. Okay. But you're seeing it green. So therefore it's green.
That's right.
And when you can really get a grasp on this, you might realize how important, absolutely important, imperative it is that you heal your unresolved stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. Because all that unresolved stuff is what's guiding your perception. In psychology, it's very clear. We call that the unconscious, the subconscious, all these things that are motivating our behavior that have not risen to the surface, that you have not taken a look at, that you have not acknowledged and owned, that you have these beliefs inside of you. And of course, whatever you don't take a look at is and are those very things that are governing you, because you're too afraid or too fearful to look at this pain, as you describe all the time, this where your heart is broken. If you're too afraid and you don't have the courage because it hurts so bad, and I get it, nobody's judging you, right? We understand that it's hard to look at your shit.
Okay.
It's hard to look at right? It's hard to look at our own stuff. Why? Because it's so heartbreaking. It's so horrible. It's so tragic. It hurts so much. So you have to have the courage to look at the stuff and then heal it. These are different steps in the healing process. But my point is that all this, whatever's behind that door that you refuse to look at, it's those things behind that door that is governing your behavior this way that you don't even realize.
Right.
Because everything is
Yeah, that's
Because everything is one last sentence, one last thought, because everything is governed to avoid what's behind that door. You have set up your system to avoid all the things that bring you that pain. Anytime you get close to looking at that pain, whoa, you shut it right down and you turn away from it and you go this way. So that's the point I'm trying to impress upon, is that all these things that we're afraid to look at are the very things that are governing our movement right now today, and
yes,
are unaware of it.
absolutely. And that's a very, very good point, Gavin, because absolutely, because we're thinking that by avoiding, like even in this case with this gal, avoiding talking about it, that somehow it's not gonna do us any harm. On
Right.
the contrary,
Yes.
the more we ignore it, the more we avoid it and all that stuff, the more it actually manifests in our lives, in our reality.
Correct. That's
Okay.
right.
And that's why there's the saying called, what we uh, resist persists.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happens. The more we don't want to look at it, the more it happens out there. And people don't realize the connection between like reality and what's going on with them spiritually. Most people think like it's a separate thing or something, but it's like the drama in your life quite often is very influenced by all the vibration of the stuff that's not resolved within yourself. So you're actually repeating history quite often, even from past lifetimes, by recreating situations energetically, and you're not even aware that you're doing that.
Yes, very true.
Okay.
Very true.
But I wanted to, what I thought might be really good is to give people some examples of this.
Sure.
Because I have a very distinct example of like, doing something out of fear where people don't necessarily think it is fear at all. Most people don't recognize their own fear. They're like, oh, I'm not afraid, and
Yeah,
yet
so
they're
many
acting
people.
from a deeper fear, but it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like fear. Okay. It's not like you're shaking your boots or something, but it still comes from fear because
Correct.
it comes from your pain.
That's
And,
right.
I have this interesting life story of my own that so helped me really look at this stuff, because there was a time before I went into the metaphysical world where I wasn't afraid of anything either until I found that differently, right?
Right.
And then I really saw the big ass wall of China of fear in front of me all of a sudden.
Yes, exactly.
And so, there was I was actually in cosmetology before I went into the metaphysical healing world and all that stuff.
How
I used to
cool.
cut hair,
Nice.
and do facials and hair removal and all that good jazz.
Right.
And I had a studio in my home,
Nice.
and I went through the whole school and scuba and all that stuff. And trying to start off a business in it, and I wasn't quite making enough money to cover all my expenses.
Right.
And so I kind of put that out there to spirit to help me, try to figure out a solution. And so all of a sudden, what shows up is the salon that somebody's trying to sell.
Cool.
That's like 5 minutes from where I was living in walking distance.
Wow.
I was like, it was like a divine, here's your solution to what you're trying to solve, right?
5 minutes away. That's perfect.
5 minutes away. Gavin, I talked to the gal. She was really nice. I kind of hit it off with her, the owner who owned it. I arranged even for personal private financing, which is so hard to find, to buy that salon. Okay.
Yeah.
I talked to all the gals. They were all happy and good with me coming on board and all that stuff. I went through all the numbers. I, made sure that everything's going to work out, and it all looked great, right? I did like 2 months worth of due diligence on being, buying this thing. Excellent. Thinking that come August 1st, I'm going to have enough money and all this stuff. And, I'm going to be able to, get everything handled, right? Until the very last minute, when the whole thing came apart by the seams. Okay.
Wow. How
And
so?
it was a stupid little thing, like the owner of the building didn't want to let the owner of the business out of the lease,
Jeez.
and she was going to have to like sublet it to me or some weird ass thing like that. And her attorney wrote up this 100-page document about how I was going to take all the risk.
Yeah.
So in other words, if I didn't pay the rent 1 month, she would get a 30 grand business back. I'm like, no fucking way am I doing that. Okay. So the whole thing just fell apart. And
Sorry about
it was,
that.
I know, it was so devastating to me emotionally
I'm sure.
that I had that stack of papers that accumulated over the 2 months sitting on my countertop in the kitchen. And I couldn't touch it for like the next 3 or 4 months. It just sat there. I could not get myself to touch it, to move it, to do nothing with it. I was so emotionally just blown away by the whole thing.
Yeah, pretty
And
devastating.
I couldn't understand, why did this happen? Because it seemed like such a solution to what I was asking for, to deal with my finances, to finally, meet my ends, to finally, find some resolution that would work, And so when I went to see the shaman I worked with for a while after I met my twin flame, I asked him, I said, why did this not work out for me? I don't understand.
Right.
Because in a way it felt like it was by divine design, the fact that it fell through so stupidly, you know what I mean? This little thing that caused it to fall through when everything else worked. And it was like, what the fuck, excuse my expression. So we're cussing today, right? Too much, I guess.
It's the swear show. All right.
It's the swear show today, right? I know. So you know what he said? He said, I wasn't acting from my higher self.
Who said
acting,
that? Oh, you
the
were
shaman,
not. Okay.
the shaman.
Gotcha.
I asked the shaman, why did this fall through for me?
Mm-hmm.
Why this fell through, because I couldn't understand why it didn't work out. And he said, basically, because I wasn't acting from my highest self. I was acting from fear.
Yeah. I get it.
Makes sense. Like, holy shit, what do you mean fear? I was acting from fear. I was just trying to resolve my financial problems.
Yeah, based in fear.
Based in fear, right? But I didn't get it back then. It
Right.
took me years to get it.
Yes.
It took me literally years to get it. All right. And he was right. Because you know what? A year later, and this is, I was trying to buy the salon before I knew what my sole purpose was, which was basically going to the metaphysical world. I had no idea back then about my sole purpose yet, right?
Right.
Okay. At the same time, a year later, I come down with these horrific allergies to every chemical in the world, right? So can you imagine if I owned a salon with chemical processes and all that stuff?
Oh my gosh.
It would have been the worst thing ever.
It would have been after, I know all of your issues of the past 10 years, with being poisoned,
Yeah, but I mean, just the allergies, chemicals, you're allergic to chemicals. Salons had a ton of chemicals. I couldn't even walk into the salon at that time if I had the salon.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
divine intervention.
It was totally divine intervention. And I was so totally coming from fear because I wasn't looking at the big picture. I didn't even know what the big picture was.
Right.
I was coming from a place of survival. And the place of survival is really based in your ego, in your pain, in your fear.
Amen. Well said.
Yes.
That's exactly it.
Right.
Survival is based out of fear. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Because from your higher self isn't concerned about your survival. Your higher self is concerned about you thriving.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so, while I might have survived with it for a while, it would have really killed me after a year of that, if I come down with those allergies.
That's right.
So, yeah. And so that was the huge difference. It was such a huge lesson for me. And it literally took me years to get that lesson, okay, to
Right.
really understand that and
Yeah.
to what happened. Because so many of us do not know that we're acting from fear when in fact we are.
Exactly. And I think it needs to be said again.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us do not know that we're living and acting from fear, just completely unaware.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people on Facebook. I had mentioned a comment and they say, well, it seems like you're in fear. And immediately they're like, I'm not afraid. I don't fear anything.
I
And
know, that's
it's
exactly the
like,
same thing I get. And it's such
okay,
hogwash,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like, all right, well, clearly we're not going to go down that path right now because you
I
need
know.
some therapy sessions to help you understand that you really are in fear because
Right. Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
they're not even getting it. They're oblivious to their own fear,
Right.
oblivious to what's going on, and that's reflective of the fact that society does not value self reflection and introspection and spirituality.
Well,
And
and it seems that with, the metaphysical world about, pressing people to come into higher vibration, there's been all of a sudden this thing about, being afraid of being afraid. I guess, you know what I mean? Oh, I don't have any fear, like it's a plague of some sort.
right,
And there is nothing really wrong with it other than, the reason we are mentioning it is because you can heal out of fear and raise your vibration, but not by ignoring it.
right, absolutely.
The way you raise your vibration is by healing the underlying pain, not by ignoring your fear and pretending you're not afraid.
And people don't understand that.
No, absolutely not. Even in the light workers and metaphysical world, I'm like always flabbergasted by that,
Yeah,
because it's
people.
that, somehow pretending to be on cloud nine doesn't make it so.
Yeah, and it has to do with their own judgment.
Right.
They think that somehow people are judging them or they're
Mhm.
judging themselves, or
Right.
or what I really wanted to say was that they think it's a perception of weakness,
Yes, exactly.
and they don't
Yes.
differentiate the two between
Right.
strength and fear or weakness.
And
Um,
the
and
truth of it is, Gavin, is that, if you lived at all, you have experienced pain. And if you've
yeah,
experienced pain, you have fear in your vibration.
thank
Period.
you. Yeah, it is what it is, and people just
Yeah.
don't understand that.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
it's simply a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness of how the systems work and how we
Mhm.
function as
Right.
human beings and galactic beings, quite honestly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, there's this whole, concept of, well, I don't know if you want to call it misconception or like this almost falsehood, in the metaphysical world, what things mean, in terms of like the higher vibrations or what it means to have fear or don't have fear, or, there's so many misconceptions, and, everybody's like wanting to be pretending that they're high on the vibrational tone scale. And, it's just like, none of that matters, because you know
doesn't.
what? You don't have to say a word, and your vibration speaks to the world
Mm-hmm. Correct.
and everything that's in it. You know, everything that is in your space, in your reality, is there because you have created it with your vibration.
That's right. Absolutely. And with your intention,
Which is in your
whether you're
vibration too.
aware,
Yeah.
whether you're aware of your intention or not.
Right. Yes. I mean, your thoughts are also in your vibration, your intention, but so are all your unresolved experiences.
That's right. So
And they're much more powerful usually because they're backed by pain, and pain has a lot more charge to it than your thought. Okay, that's just simple thought.
you
All
got
right,
it.
and so it many times overpowers your thought as far as vibrationally and stuff. And so yes, it's an unfortunate thing because we can all pretend to be in high vibration, not be, and while we're, I don't know, it seems like a whole herd, running toward the edge of the cliff, and we're gonna go over anyway, pretending we're in high vibration over here. You know what I mean?
Of course,
So,
I understand. A couple things are popping up for me. One is this
Yeah.
woke concept.
yeah,
So the people who are in our field, healing or spirituality or metaphysics, there's a term called spiritual bypass. And what this is people learning the knowledge or learning the concepts, for example, of law of attraction, right? And how that works, or reincarnation and all these other things. So they have the knowledge, they have the information because they read it and it
Mhm.
mentally makes sense. They intellectually understand what they read. Oh, okay, yeah, this does this, so that, yeah, all
Mhm.
this fits together. But what's happening? So it's up here. They get it up here,
Right.
right? The difference is that they have not integrated it into their body. They haven't integrated it into their being so that they actually are working or living from that place of enlightenment.
Right.
So this is why we call it a spiritual bypass, because they got the knowledge, but they're not doing the work.
Right. Yes, that's a very good point. Actually, that's a very
Right.
good point.
And so that's why we call it a spiritual bypass. So they fit, this is like all the gurus who talk the talk, who do not walk the walk. That's why we call it a spiritual bypass, because they think that they're so awake and so worldly and so enlightened and so blah blah blah,
Mhm.
but they're just full of crap. Because
Yeah, they're
they
just
talk the
talking.
talk. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just talking. Their actions don't follow their words because they haven't integrated that information that they intellectually understand into their body, into their being. It's not a part of their life. It's just words at this point.
No, that's an excellent point. A very good point. Yes, absolutely. And that's so sad about the metaphysical community, because there's a lot of people out there who are not walking the walk.
Yes,
Okay? They're
absolutely.
just talking.
And
And
they're just taking your money.
right. And it's
Those are
sad
the true
because
charlatans. Those are the true charlatans.
yeah, and it's so sad because once people get burned in that metaphysical world, then they think that, you know, it's like that with everybody.
Correct. And that gives you people like you and me authentic and genuine therapists and counselors and people who can guide you out of the darkness. It gives genuine healers like ourselves a
Yeah.
bad name, thinking that all of us are charlatans when that's
Exactly.
not accurate. But there are more charlatans than there are authentic healers, and that's what makes it so hard.
Right. It is. It does make it very hard. So yeah, no, those are some very excellent points. So how do we, one is the question I posed is, how do we protect ourselves from things like fear mongering, for example? You know?
Of course, immediately I chuckle because the only way to protect yourself is to become aware, is to go through, to walk your path, to heal your issues. That's the only way that you can differentiate and say, oh, look, I've been harboring since I was 4, or since I was 24, or since I was 44. Look at these things that I have yet to heal. And so it's those things, like I mentioned earlier, behind that door that you're too terrified to look at, that are actually governing your movement and your behavior now. And so many people don't even understand that.
Right. And I think you're absolutely right. And that's kind of the conclusion I came to too, is that, no matter what anybody else says, your only truth and true north compass is yourself, is your higher self. And if you don't have that communication established by having too much clutter in your soul with all this unresolved pain stuff, where you don't have a clear communication, or you're disconnected from that, or whatever the case may be, you cannot discern the truth from reality, or the reality from non-reality, or if somebody's trying to get your goat, or otherwise. Okay.
Or fear-mongering from the real threat, or fear-mongering from the real threat.
Right.
In other words, so many people are deceived because they have no internal compass. They have not done their work. They have no trust inside themselves about what's correct and what's not correct, because they have not walked their walk.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I'm actually going to be, I'm actually working on a program right now. It's kind of a bigger program. It's going to be like a 3 month program to
Nice.
basically help people align with their true self.
Excellent.
And it's going to involve, I'm going to try to put it together as a group. Very, just specific people. There's only room for a small amount of people for me to work with.
Right.
And it's going to be training and learning, okay, the theories behind what's happening and understanding ourselves as far as the soul, as well as the healing aspect, the walking the walk part,
Nice.
to help people shift their energy around aligning with their true self. And that's really what we need, to be able to discern things like we're talking about,
Yeah.
real
Yep.
threats from only fear, or if somebody's trying to get your goat or fear mongering or whatever they're doing.
Mhm.
That's the only way to really discern it,
It is.
Yeah, I can't think of any other way to really what to do to be able to tell, because no matter who you go to, they could be lying to you and you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah. Well, you're
Right.
able to tell if you did your work and you have an internal compass. That's how you know that
Exactly,
people are
right.
lying to you. People are deceived, and people can lie to you all the time, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, he's totally BSing me, and we are able to see these people.
Right.
We can see through the BS.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many people who, because they haven't done their work, because they don't have an internal barometer, an internal compass, they're deceived regularly, and they wonder, gee, I don't know, why did this happen to me, and they
Mm-hmm.
fall into the victim mentality and blame everybody else, again, without doing their own work.
Exactly, absolutely. And so and this is also true for like people who go get readings done, right? This is a lot
Oh,
of times
yes.
people go get readings because they want to know, right?
Yeah.
But see, whoever you get a reading with, okay, one of the things I want to go over a little bit about the reading aspect, because while yes, there are some of us that can key into the future, okay, but it's all future events are based on decisions you already made, okay, which
Right.
means that you can change your mind about something and alter the future. The
Amen.
future isn't written in stone. All right,
Mm-hmm.
you can change your future if you want to. And so the one who does the reading, okay, um, depends on the kind of understanding that they have, because they're filtering everything they're reading through their understanding filter.
Correct.
And if they don't have the kind of understanding they need, they could be also not giving you true information.
And I want to capitalize on that and say, if
Yeah.
if the reader has not done their own work,
Exactly.
then they are looking through their own
Colored
subjective
glasses, yes.
biases. They're looking through their own
Yes.
biases and will not give you a neutral reading.
Exactly.
The reading that they give you is going to be channeled and funneled through their own shit that is unhealed.
Exactly. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Correct.
And quite often the reason people are so anxious to get a reading is because they want to find out, right? Well, what if you could connect with your higher self yourself and follow its guidance and create the future you want, instead of trying to depend on some reader telling you what it's going to be?
Well, of course, that's our main role here as healers, is to help people create their future, what they want, by getting rid of the stuff that they're afraid to look at and avoiding.
Right. So that they don't have to keep recreating all that junk, right?
Or keep going back to a reader who's giving them BS through their own unresolved issues. And they can actually do a reading for themselves. They could do a reading for themselves because they are now the authority, the source of their own knowing and their own intuition.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a little bit of tidbit about the whole reading aspect, because that's where we go trying to figure things out, and it doesn't mean the information is correct either. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I've had readers tell me stuff that none of it came true. Okay, okay, well, that's all very interesting. You know, and they were very, you know, like readers that are common in a bookstore, you know, very popular, you know, all that stuff, and none of it came through.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very fascinating, you know, all that. I mean, yeah, you just got to be careful in that whole environment because, yeah, the best way is to connect with your own intuition, to your higher self, to have guidance there, you know.
And from my perspective, it's the only way.
It's the only way, yeah. It really is. And you know, your higher self, your spirit is always communicating with you. And the question is, are you listening? You know, because
Most
quite
people-
often, you know, when I do one of these fairs and I have kids come to me
Nice.
because they know that I can heal something for them. They
Yeah.
know, their spirit knows.
That's right.
It's so fascinating to watch that, you know. They can't put it in words, even what they need, but
Yeah.
they're drawn. They know that I got something that they need, you
That's
know.
right.
And so, you know, your spirit doesn't lie if you connect it correctly and listen to the right place, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a beautiful thing actually when you're connected with your spirit and your higher self, and you know, it guides you, you know.
Yes. Yes. And I would say your spirit doesn't lie, period. What lies to you is your ego and your
Yes.
unresolved issues
Yes, exactly. They muddy the water every time.
all the time.
Yes.
Intentionally to stay in control. Your ego wants to stay in control. And it is governing most people on the planet, at least those who are not walking their walk, those who are not healing their issues and,
Yes.
you know, honoring a spiritual path.
Yes.
Everybody
you know,
else is being
yeah.
governed by ego.
Yes. And it's because, you know, your ego is rooted in it's your survival mechanism.
Yep. Rooted in fear.
Rooted in fear, exactly. And so it's going off of all your unresolved pain. That's its measuring mark.
It is.
And that's why when you're actually doing a healing, you're healing the underlying pain, you're taking that measuring mark away.
Right. Excellent point. Yes.
Yes. So that it doesn't have anything to compare to, because when you actually heal your pain, what you're doing is you're transforming it into wisdom.
Yes.
And so it ceases to be in the form of pain in your ego. And so now your ego doesn't have a comparison. So next time, you know, you see color red, it won't set up a bunch of warning signs in your head anymore. Okay.
I really like you bringing that up because earlier I and you were talking about how we are our own internal barometers from a healthy standpoint, right? Our intuition is our healthy, divine barometer. And yet the flip side, in the negativity, in the dark, in the lower vibrations, it is your pain. Your pain is that barometer. You know, it is your ego that is the one that is guiding your behaviors. So when you're aware, it's your intuition. When you're not aware, it's your pain. And both of them are the most powerful that motivates and governs and drives your behavior and your thinking.
Exactly.
Flat out. So it's either pain or it's intuition, one or the other.
Exactly. And yes, that's exactly right. And you can't be in both places at the same time.
No, you can't.
You're either in your intuition or you're in your ego.
Yeah, you're either higher vibration or lower vibration. You can't coexist in both vibrations.
Well, it's not a vibrational thing though. Well, I guess it could be. But anyway, you can actually shift back and forth. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's what people
do.
So
like, for example, all right, because the vibrational scale, you can go up and down it temporarily based on events that happen to you, right? But then there is a permanent place where you are, okay, where you always gravitate back toward, all right? So when you are, say, for example, in your higher vibration, wherever that is, maybe it's at neutral or whatever, and say that all of a sudden something happens, or some, you know, on the news, they talk about another pandemic going on, right? And it keys you into some past pain in the past lifetime when you experienced, you know, some kind of a, I don't know, virus that was, what's that virus called where your skin falls off? Oh, leprosy, right? When you experience leprosy or whatever, right? So all of a sudden, what happens to your vibration? phew, it goes down, right? Because you're now down here in your fear, right? Because your pain pulled you there.
That's
All
right.
right. And so now you're riding the emotional wave of that low vibration, pain that you just connected with. And that's how it acts. It takes about 3 days. You pop back up out of it if you can disconnect.
Yeah.
All right. So you pop back up to your neutral point of vibration.
Your
And then the
baseline.
next thing happens, right?
Yep.
So you fall in love. Well, what happens to vibration? Woo! It goes through cloud 9 up here, right? And you're floating on the cloud and everything's hunky-dory and all that stuff. And I don't know, whenever that initial period subsides, you come back to your neutral point, right?
Yeah.
And then the next thing happens, right? And then you go pew, down back into your pain and fear. And oh my God. So some people experience it actually as a bipolar type scenario because of this back and up and down. Yeah. Because a lot of it is happening today with the ascension process. We're keying into this stuff all the time, right?
That's true.
So that's another critical why to heal all this unresolved stuff in your ego, because that's what's dragging you down every time vibrationally,
You got it.
So yeah, that's
Nice.
how that happens. Well, we got like 3 minutes left. Anything else you want to say on this topic?
Well, I wanted to thank you for that explanation. That was cool. And I particularly liked your sound effects. Woo!
Oh, you like? Well, I'm glad you got a kick out of my sound effects. That's always awesome. Cool. So yeah, I mean, I hope this information helped for those who are watching. Thank you so much for watching if you are, and give us a thumbs up if you like the video, if you like the information. We'd love to hear from you if you have any comments or any suggestions of what you would like to hear about, and or subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our future videos. We are streaming live on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys soon again.
Bye, y'all.
Cool.